What's up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, we're going to be breaking down Black Panther number 10 by John Ridley and Jermaine Peralta. I'm going to be breaking down exactly what is up with Black Panther's new nemesis, the Buffalo Soldier, as well as how is Wakanda responding to T'Challa in the wake of his secrets being aired out, and how is T'Challa coping with losing virtually everything and everyone he cares about.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
When last we left off, T'Challa was attacked by one of the colonialist mercenaries, the Buffalo Soldier. A guy who literally looks like one of the actual real-life Buffalo Soldiers riding a massive buffalo. But we really didn't know anything about him other than the fact that whatever it is, he possesses weaponry that very clearly can pierce vibranium, and we'll talk more about that here in just a moment. But for those who are curious about who the Buffalo Soldier is and where he comes from, we're never told explicitly what planet he comes from, but we know wherever it is, the planet is shared by two separate species, one of which the Buffalo Soldier hails from, and they appear to be a species purely made up of black people. The other inhabitants were a species called the Mugabe. And the two species lived in peace and prosperity for the most part. They lived together, they ate together, they bonded with one another, they cohabitated with one another. Everything pretty much kind of seemed to be perfect harmony until the colonialists came along and spread lies to Buffalo Soldier's people, telling them that the Mugabe were preparing to wipe them out, to destroy them, to take the planet for themselves, and that was only a matter of time before they finally let their veil of friendship slip and attack. And what's even sadder is that the Buffalo Soldier's people believed it. The colonialists brought them weapons of mass destruction, things that the Mugabe were incapable of defending themselves against, and the Buffalo Soldier and his people wiped out the Mugabe. The colonialists gave them all the tools in order to use them as weapons, and with his own expeditionary force there to teach them how to use them, because they weren't a warlike people, they were a peacetime people. This is what turned the Buffalo Soldier into the hardened warrior that he was, because it's not something that he actually wanted to be himself. It was something that was a learned behavior, was something that was enforced upon him by the colonialists and his army. To make matters even worse, what the colonialist was doing was not even to actually, quotey fingers, help the Buffalo Soldier species. They had a natural resource on their planet, a resource that the colonialist had convinced the Buffalo Soldier's people was something that was useless to them, as he even refers to it himself as a useless shiny rock. But this was actually something that was of use to the colonialist, and while we're never told exactly what this shiny rock is or was or could do, what we can infer about it based on how the colonialist is trying to conquer Earth is that it very likely has a lot of similarities to metals like vibranium and adamantium. And once the Buffalo Soldier's people had wiped out the Mugabe, the colonialists duped their people into mining the damn rocks for them. Once again, the colonialist, a pure colonizer in every sense of the word. The colonialists used the Buffalo Soldier and his people almost no differently than the United States government used the Buffalo Soldiers against Native Americans, all in an effort of American colonialism and expansion. I'm not gonna lie, this is something that I feel like you're either gonna agree or disagree, but it's a matter of historical fact. The real life Buffalo Soldiers, all black men whose freedom was still only recently earned, were used as tools of American colonialism and expansion, and those black men had no choice. Well, they technically did, they technically didn't. I'm sure if they chose not to fight or go against the United States government and what they ordered them to do, I'm pretty sure they would have been killed. And while some will tell you that they had a choice in the matter and that everything was perfectly fine and dandy and that the United States government and the United States Army was nowhere near as racist as them or even racist at all as people claim, that is a whole other story altogether, and I am not equipped to talk about that right now at this point in time because I would be here forever. Just know that these talking points are a thing. But getting back to the Buffalo Soldier and his weaponry, I'm pretty sure that those useless shiny rocks that his people were mining for the colonialist. I'm pretty sure his weapons are made from it, hence why he was able to slash through T'Challa's armor so casually with nothing more than a combat knife. And even at a later point, he's able to pull a revolver on T'Challa and shoot him with a bullet that manages to also pierce through his vibranium armor. Whatever it is, whatever these weapons are made of, whatever these bullets are made of, they come from his planet and very likely are something, a resource that's still out there somewhere and probably something that the colonialist still has in his possession, since he's clearly making weapons out of it and giving them to the Buffalo Soldier. That said, I am glad to report that the Buffalo Soldier is not as much the villain as I think a lot of people were expecting him to be when he first showed up. And I kind of felt the same way about this as what was actually revealed, is that he's only a villain to T'Challa until he realizes the truth about what's going on around him. And I think while T'Challa's words didn't really have much weight on the Buffalo Soldier at first, it's not really until the Buffalo Soldier looks T'Challa dead in his eyes after he takes off his mask that the Buffalo Soldier realizes that he's fighting someone who looks just like him. And at first when I read this, I didn't catch it at first because I was like, wait a minute, I was like, how is he just on a dime, snap, turning around and going, wait a minute. Maybe he is right. At first, I'm not gonna lie, I came into this video fully prepared to tell you all that T'Challa pulled a Naruto on the Buffalo Soldier and convinced him to change his ways, but it's actually not really 100% the case. Yes, he did actually tell the Buffalo Soldier some really compelling things, made some compelling arguments, made a lot of comparisons between the Buffalo Soldier himself as well as the real life Buffalo Soldiers that actually existed in our history. Even a lot of that didn't actually hold a lot of weight on the Buffalo Soldier's heart. It wasn't until he saw T'Challa's face and recognized him as someone who looks like him, someone who could literally be his own brother, that he realized the colonialist was pitting him against his own people. In a manner of speaking, they're not the same species, but they very clearly share a lot of similarities. The Buffalo Soldier species is alien to Earth, but they were all black people, and well, you have the Black Panther, who is African, so in the end, the Buffalo Soldier actually is instrumental in helping T'Challa turn the tide against the colonialist, and it is then later revealed that, as we talked about in the previous issue, that the colonialist who we've been seeing, we saw the little puppet that was supposedly the interpreter for all of this, and that the actual human-sized person was the actual colonialist and was just merely keeping quiet because he either couldn't talk or chose not to. We learn in this issue that actually wasn't the case either. The puppet is actually the colonialist. The human-sized person is more a puppet than anything else. And his very same objectifications that were itching to turn on him, and the colonialist is likely no more, as colonizers should be. That said, there are some other compelling things that go on in this book that I really enjoyed. Now, I will say this, some people I know aren't crazy about the new direction that Wakanda is going. It's leaning more towards a democratic society and getting away from being a monarchy. And while I have mixed opinions about that, I do think it's something that's more interesting than things we've seen in the past. T'Challa has been king of Wakanda for as long as he has been a character in the Marvel Comics universe, going all the way back to 1966. However, I feel like that it is high time for a change. And honestly, the democratic experiment, while your mileage will vary with it, I feel like it opens up Wakanda to a new slate of problems and storytelling opportunities. I'm okay with it. I think it will be fine. I feel like, just like with everything else in the world, Prime Minister Folasade has the best of intentions, but in the end, something bad will happen, and they will probably realize that maybe we should go back to the way things were, or they'll just find another way. Over the last, decade or so, Reggie Hudlin, Ta-Nehisi Coates, and now John Ridley have all come in and tried to clean up some of the things about Wakanda that just didn't really work, at least not for me, and I'm okay with that. I feel like the Dora Milaje, who started out as just wives in waiting, they have moved on and become their own people, separate from the Golden City, and are thriving right now. The Tutsi, the secret police of Wakanda, has been disbanded and destroyed, and now Wakanda's citizens, its people, are finally getting to have a voice in the country that they love and live in. Not only that, we know that the Marube are finally starting to have a say and a place in Wakanda's government, and I'm curious to see how that plays out too, because Tosin is a very fiery character and he has no love for T'Challa or the Golden City for that matter. And I think there's some very interesting opportunities for storytelling there as well. And as far as them flaming T'Challa, they have every right to, because much like I've said before, T'Challa has always maintained this kind of Batman style way of doing things. He keeps secrets on top of secrets. His secrets have secrets, and it's one of those deals where they all caught up with him. It's something that my grandmother used to tell me all the time. She always told me 2 specific things about lies that has always been true to me. What's done in the dark eventually comes to light, and that definitely happened with T'Challa. Everything with the sleeper agents and all that stuff came to light regardless of whether he wanted it to or not. And not only that, but the only way to cover up a lie is with another lie. And that's exactly what T'Challa learned in these last few issues, is that all the lies he had been telling, the only way he could try to cover himself is to tell another lie. But he quickly learned the truth is a bitter draft. Everyone else has abandoned him. Storm no longer wants to be with him because of his lies and misdirections. And while Shuri is still hanging around and being supportive of T'Challa, she's keeping her distance for the most part, and mostly because she knows that her brother needs space. And of course, the Dora Milaje, they've long since been done with T'Challa, so he's lost a lot. And not only has he lost that, he also lost 2 close friends. He lost Jai in the first issue of John Ridley's Black Panther, a character who we really had never met before then, but a character who was really close to T'Challa in times that were just not visible or available to us until then, because Jai was a sleeper agent and had been one for quite some time. And that's kind of the nature of a sleeper agent, is to not hang around the people that they are sleeper agents for. So I guess it makes sense that we had never seen Jai up to this point. And of course, Akili was a longtime ally and friend of T'Challa, and he just recently had to fight his friend to the death, and Akili killed himself right in front of T'Challa. Not only that, but there was also the betrayal at the hands of Akili that T'Challa had to experience as well. And right now, I think he's lost and doesn't really know what to do. And I know some people don't like to see their heroes broken down and deconstructed, but Black Panther right now is being broken down and deconstructed. But one of the best parts about stories like this, where a character is once again broken down and deconstructed, is that it's an opportunity for that character to grow and change and be reconstructed as something better. Because that's kind of the idea, right? To be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be, and of course to be a better person tomorrow than you were yesterday. But anyways, that's everything I really want to talk about with Black Panther number 10. If you want to know more about T'Challa's journey and how he became the Emperor of a Wakanda beyond the stars, check out this playlist right here. And in the meantime, let me know what you thought about Black Panther number 10. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.